We present to you local and international newspaper headlines for the day with in-depth analysis from seasoned professionals. Start your day the right way on 99.3 Nigeria Info. Nigeria Info.
Yes, it's 99.3 Nigeria Info, and Monday it is the 16th day of September 2019. Welcome to the Morning Crossfire. If you are joining us right now, we've started since 6 a.m., but this is a part of the show where we look at the stories making it to the front pages. We'll go through the dailies that we have today, tell you the headlines, the details in the stories, and also have our analysts give you some juice on that story. We're right there on Facebook and YouTube at Nigeria Info FM. You can watch us live right now. Anywhere you want the world, take us along with you. Listen online, www.nigeriainfo.fm. WhatsApp is also very open for you to join us, 08095975805. And on Twitter, use the hashtag Frontpages or the Morning Crossfire. Tweet at Nigeria Info FM. Welcome to the show. I'm Wemimo Adewuni.
I'm Sheriff Quadry, and we have our analyst in the studio, Rotim. I beg your pardon. I'm so used to Rotim. Gbolahan Olojede is here. Well, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning. It's good
So
to be
Rotimi
here.
will be away.
Rotimi will be away.
Okay, I'm sure he's smiling anyway. He is, if you heard that. That's Sheriff's way of telling you that, oh, I thought you were going to be here. Gbolahan Olojede is joining us today, and we're looking at these stories. Remember that The Guardian is our media partner. Let's start with this story, making it there. Pressure on Buhari to sue South Africa over attacks, and there are three riders on this one. Akinyemi wants case at ICJ. Anyoko urges caution, seeks compensation. We're weighing options, won't rule out anything for now, says government. And also here, the Nation newspaper, South Africa's envoy heads for Nigeria on peace mission. 320 Nigerians will be back tomorrow. Akinyemi to federal government, go to world courts. It's also here, the Daily Sun. Xenophobia. Akinyemi asks federal government to drag South Africa before ICJ. Ramaphosa sends envoy to African countries. The Blueprint also has a story. Xenophobia. 320 more Nigerians returned from South Africa on Tuesday. Ohaneze youth absolve Igbo. See that story on the Blueprint newspaper.
Moving on to the Punch newspaper this morning. Xenophobia. FG to evacuate 319 from South Africa Tuesday. Right out, Ramaphosa sends 3 envoys to Buhari, others. The Punch front page for you. Moving on now to the Daily Independent newspaper. Xenophobic attacks. Ramaphosa sends envoys to Nigeria, 6 African countries. Rider, South African government sponsored attacks on Nigerians, others. That's according to Professor Akinyemi. Daily Independent newspaper for you. From Daily Trust, Xenophobia. Ramaphosa sends envoy to Nigeria. And from Nigerian Express, xenophobic attacks Nigerians who won't leave South Africa. That's coming from the Nigerian Express. And then from the Vanguard newspaper, Xenophobia. Ramaphosa sends envoys to Nigeria, 6 other countries. Riders, aftermath of GA's booze at Mugabe's burial. Ramaphosa in church blasts perpetrators of attacks. Sue South Africa's government now. Bolaji Akinyemi urges federal government. The Vanguard newspaper. Well,
Oh, wow. Well, I'm glad we are getting somewhere because apparently now South Africa, at the burial of Mugabe, Ramaphosa was able to feel it firsthand.
Right.
That it seems as if I'm isolated.
Africans are not happy with
Africa are not happy with you, and they made it known that they're not happy with him.
right.
So it was on the heels of that I decided to send the envoy to 7 countries. But that is not about it. You know, there is a lot more to be done. You listen to someone like Professor Akinyemi, a seasoned diplomat himself.
That's right.
You know, saying we need to sue South Africa because we need to get them to the table where the gravity of what has happened will be, you know, turned to pieces, laid on the table for everybody to see.
Right.
And the issue of we don't have compensation in our laws may be something that will be tabled at that discussion as well.
Right.
South Africa is a signatory to a number of world conventions and covenants.
Right.
And it could be held responsible for what happened in South Africa.
Let's-
If you look
let's-
at the way
let's-
it played out,
Yes, please.
at a point in time, you could almost sense that, is this a government policy?
So I was going to ask you that because it took Ramaphosa weeks. It took him to attend, the congregation of African leaders for him to be able to now address this. When he got back home, he was blasting everybody,
Yeah.
especially the attackers. and right from the outset, he's been criticized that he kept mute. And Professor Akinyemi said in one of the headlines that, these attacks were actually state-sponsored in one way or the other.
In a way, when you look at the fact that there's a political end to this, the ANC apparently had failed to deliver the hopes of the blacks
Over the years.
in South Africa over the years. Unemployment has been much higher among them. They never got to seize the economic power from the white, though
Right.
they seized the political power.
Right.
The elite among the blacks was still seen even as stooges of the white.
The
So
minority
it's
white.
the minority white. So it's a major problem. So it's as if when their brothers call on them to say, look, we're not getting the dividends of all this fight we have had before. So it was because of those other guys that you see. They are here taking away your job. So there's a political end to that.
Many people have accused the South African government of being xenophobic itself. And remember, they keep emphasizing that what has happened is not xenophobia. So how do we hold the government responsible when they
it wouldn't-
insist that it is not xenophobia? They claim it's just pockets of violence across these places. I remember that the Nigerians that were meant to be repatriated last week, just 187 of them came back instead of 320. Many of them were stopped from going on the plane at the airport because of issues which South Africans claim, paper issues, although our embassy there had provided emergency, travel documents for those of them who didn't have papers. So it looked, from one angle that the
was
South African
deliberate.
government is baiting Nigeria, like, what would you guys do? What would you guys do? Keep pushing.
That's why, honestly, everybody who has followed the story will have the same sentiment, that it seems as if it was a deliberate state policy, everything has happened. But let's see whether there's a genuine flip from the outcome of his Zimbabwe
When his envoys visit.
When,
And he wouldn't have apologized if he wasn't booed.
Right.
It didn't look
That's what I'm
like he
saying.
had an apology in his speech.
it was that point that flipped things. He started saying as if, apparently I'm isolated.
It didn't look like he had an apology
You know.
in his speech. It was
Right.
just
There to come out. He has more or less said that wasn't xenophobia.
right. He
So
said it over
maybe
and
from
over.
this point onward, we begin to see elements of that. When the envoys come, we'll have a discussion. Maybe we can even table the compensation issue at that point in time. Maybe we will never even need to sue them.
Should
We can get-
the envoys be welcomed in those countries? Let me say why I asked those questions. When these attacks happened, President Buhari sent an envoy to South Africa. The day after our envoy left South Africa, on the Saturday, Nigerians were attacked the following day on the Sunday. Why should Africans listen? Why should African countries listen?
Because at the end of the day, we must come to the table.
There must be a conversation.
There must be a conversation. We must talk this over. And if a party had been mature at some point, it doesn't mean the rest of the people should join him along that path.
That's right.
Right.
So it's only if after discussions we are not seeing any headway that we can take it further.
Right. Let's move on and see this next story. It's here on the Daily Sun. $9.6 billion debt saga is not going anywhere. Nigeria fights back. That's a headline here on the Daily Sun. 2 riders suspects fraud in gas deal. Probe extends overseas. P&I, the ghost company with no office anywhere. Findings reveal. Interesting. The
Beautiful.
Nation also has a story. No sacred cows in $9.6 billion judgment probe. AGF promises tough action. Find that on The Nation. It's also reported in The Guardian. Those behind P&ID contract award unpatriotic, says Malami. Ugh. And the Blueprint also has a story. $9.6 billion P&ID contract designed to fail, says federal government. We won't allow local foreign collaborators to rip us off. Nigerians should ask PDP government for explanation, says minister.
Okay. Daily Trust newspaper this Monday morning, $9.6 billion ruling why we are negotiating with PNI, DFG, explaining Daily Trust is the paper. Moving on to Daily Independent, $9.6 billion judgment award to PNID, PDP government, contract drafters, lawyers have case to answer. The FG, Daily Independent is the paper. From the Punch above the nameplate, $9.6 billion judgment, probe extensive, intensive, borderless, says Malami. The Punch is a paper for you.
Well, I'm glad the way things are beginning to pan out about the PNID thing. This remains probably the biggest scam ever for an organization upon a country, an entire country. If we backpedal a little bit to the era when this contract was signed, there was a prevalent scam in the country then. And it has to do with contracts, default, judgment debt.
Right.
That is the way it goes. You see that.
It was a trend.
It was a trend.
And it looked like people in government were, they knew
Involved.
about this. So it was like, let's give you a contract. We won't do our part.
You won't. The nature of the drafting of the contract even make it almost impossible for you not to default.
Right.
So we will now go ahead and default. Then you will go to court, sue us. You will come back with 10 million judgment. We will
We'll pay
negotiate and do 5.
Yeah.
And we'll get government to pay 5. And
Right.
then everybody
Goes
will-
away smiling.
everybody goes away smiling. That was the trend. An entire chapter was dedicated in NOI's book to this particular scam. And he gave certain examples and also spoke about the one that she herself frustrated. That, look, you guys cannot be bringing things like this to the government. We're not going to pay.
That's Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala.
That's what So it was a trend, it was a scam. This was probably the one that was meant to be the biggest of those kind of scams. Paying 1 naira to PID is injustice to the people of Nigeria.
Right.
1 naira.
However, we signed a contract,
You sign a
which
contract.
is legally binding.
No, we can go back and vitiate the contract. We can invalidate it. If we have a basis to say, look, this contract in the first instance, it's not real.
But we had the opportunity
there
to
was
do
a
that.
Exactly. There
There
was a
went
trial.
A long trial that took about.
We did not.
We didn't show
That was
up.
an
We didn't-
opportunity for us to.
Now there's a judgment, and we now
I
woke
don't
up.
think it is too late.
Okay.
We can go back and say, look, this is it. This contract, ab initio, was a scam. You cannot build anything on illegality. If
Right.
it is zero, if there is no foundation in the first instance, whatever is built on it can be made to
But
collapse.
we had opportunity. We had an opportunity to
Extensive
to
opportunity.
to tell the court exactly that, and we
didn't.
failed to do that.
We failed.
So we can
We-
appeal this judgment.
you
You
know,
think so?
Some people did not even know that we had part of the arbitrators was also a Nigerian.
Oh wow!
Yeah, the judges that made the initial decision, that was a Nigerian on that panel. Yeah.
Amazing. The government is talking tough on this one. Go see these headlines and let's see. We hope that Nigeria.
I think it's hot here and anyway. The talking tough.
Yeah.
Bottom line is let's be able to resolve this with finality.
Yeah.
If we want to probe
With a lot
few
of
people.
evidence, we need to do a lot of deep searching, find out what really happened.
We don't have an option now.
Do we? We can't
We
pay that
don't.
money.
We can't. We simply cannot.
But right now, PNID is looking for our assets to seize.
All those things are jokes.
One of the things that just
But we can settle.
We don't have to settle. Settling on this matter, to me, is unfair to the state of Nigeria.
But there
to
is
this state.
there is a court judgment.
A court judgment can
Unless
be
we can
invalidated.
obtain that
We must
judgment.
find a way to invalidate, to
but
overturn that
until
judgment.
we can obtain that judgment, it still stands.
That's where we're going. Actually, we're shooting for abrogating that judgment and the contract in its entirety.
Nigeria, we're keenly watching this one. Let's see this next story. Presidential poll, tribunal's verdict cannot stand, says PDP governors. Mind your utterances, Kalu tells politicians here on the front page of the Daily Sun. Also at the Nation, why tribunal did not rule on Atiku's citizenship. Such task is not for the panel on the Nation newspaper. Also a similar one, PDP governors okay appeal. Tribunal verdict wrong. This is all on the Nation newspaper. Move it over to other papers here.
Yes, that's right. Daily Independent newspaper. PDP governors back Atiku's decision to appeal tribunal's verdict. Riders party says tribunal judgment won't lead to implosion. Justices' phones, financial records being monitored. Is that serious? Daily Independence is the paper. Well, let's move on to the Vanguard newspaper. Atiku versus Buhari. PDP governors back party's decision to approach Supreme Court. That's from the Vanguard newspaper. There you go.
It seems as if Atiku is not the one going for appeal. Is that what it sounds like?
Yeah, well, remember, it's the PDP and Atiku. So it's the party
that is
and
going to the Supreme Court, not Atiku.
Because
Because Atiku can sue as himself,
as a candidate.
right.
as a candidate, which he did at the tribunal. Then PDP can sue as a party, having Atiku as the candidate. You know, it seems as if, from what I've seen from this story, that is the party that is going to the Supreme Court. It's nice to see it to the Supreme Court, really.
Right.
But if Atiku was the one who went to the tribunal, on what basis does the party go to the Supreme Court? They did not have a case at the tribunal.
I didn't get that.
If Atiku went to the tribunal in his own personal capacity,
Yes.
it is he that can then go to the Supreme Court based on the verdict of the tribunal.
Because the party was also at the court.
yes, so it was Atiku and the
and
PDP.
the party that were at the court.
So now it's the PDP going to the Supreme Court.
It seems we
They,
might
they have a 21-day window.
within which to do that.
Yes.
You know, there were a lot of pronouncements, a lot of judgment, a lot of the specific petitions of the people that went to court. The way the tribunal did it was to go item for item on the matter and make decisions on those things. Now, the Supreme Court some people have said, oh, they erred in law in certain things. I'm not a lawyer. There's a possibility that somebody erred in law, however they put it. The Supreme Court will again review those critical issues.
Right.
And be able to say, oh, the tribunal erred in this particular case, or it will affirm what the tribunal has said in another case. And this opportunity should be exploited to the maximum, because some of the issues being decided in the petition are very important for us as a country.
And they will lay a precedence over which other cases would then rest.
Exactly.
In
So
years to
it's
come.
important. We go through the Supreme Court
Is there a
process.
lesson to be learned in this whole case? We've seen before, we've heard before, we've watched before that politicians will on national TV say that they have to win election. Otherwise, the country will be turned upside down. They have to do this. They will do this. They will do that. But here is a political party, a former ruling party, and its candidate going through the process.
Yeah, it's going through the process is the right thing, and I think it's part of a maturing democracy. You know, it gets better over time, I believe. I mean, I was reading "Becoming" by Michelle Obama, and she talked about the night of the elections. Obama had two speeches. One was a victory speech. The other was a concession speech. So he wasn't looking at the possibility that because I was black, I've been cheated. He had a trust
In the
the
process,
system
right.
that if I didn't get it,
It means I actually didn't
win.
get it.
And this is my noble concession. We need to get to all those kind of levels in this country.
Tomorrow we would have INEC with us on the show, so they'll be telling us. Remember, the server issue has been a critical part of the judgment of the tribunal and the arguments over time. Last week we had representatives of the APC and the PDP slug it out right here on the Morning Crossfire. Tomorrow we'll focus on INEC and what they have to say about the issue of the server, especially, and also the issue about the certificate of the president in picking up that form initially. INEC will be joining us tomorrow morning. But now let's see this next story. No NFIU order on lawmakers, judges' accounts. There is no such directive. There's this post making the rounds about NFIU writing to banks to submit to them details of the accounts of judges, lawmakers, politicians, so they could look into their accounts. But NFIU says that post is not true. They don't need to write to the banks to get their details.
I think the law allows them certain latitude, and the issue of writing to bank it only makes things complicated, really. And I don't think if they say it didn't happen, I think we can take their words for it.
Right.
That it did not happen.
If they need to probe these persons, they can.
They are enabled by the laws
Yeah.
to do what they are
I felt
collect
somehow,
information about that.
seeing that post that looked like a broad swing of just send us the account of everybody. Unless you're looking for something specifically.
They don't even have the resources.
Yeah, to do that
to
mass,
do all
just
these,
send us all the
It
accounts.
doesn't make sense.
What are they looking for?
What are they looking for?
That's the
Indeed,
question.
indeed. Let's briefly move on to other stories right now. Catholic bishops land-based federal government over rising insecurity. Riders say government that can't protect citizens has failed. Slam Buhari over alleged lopsided federal government. Let me just take a sneak peek into the story. Catholic Bishops Conference of Nigeria, CBCN, on Sunday land-based that the federal government over its attitude towards tackling rising insecurity in the country. This is as it also slammed President Muhammadu Buhari over alleged lopsidedness of appointments into key federal positions. That story is from Daily Independent newspaper.
There are a few things that still matters or matter in our polity that shouldn't matter much as we mature in this democracy. Do you know that sorry to use America, it doesn't matter where the president comes from.
Right.
They don't care who is secretary for this, secretary for that. Nobody cares. The average American doesn't give a hoot. Why? Because that is not the government that is close to it. That government is important because he has certain constitutional responsibilities that impacts everybody. But that is not the one that determines where he works, what he eats. So it's not putting too much attention on that. Here, we're still contesting about somebody got a more juicy political appointment than another. The ones that got the best, how has he impacted his people?
Right.
That is the question we must be asking.
But we naturally have fault lines.
Yes.
And these fault lines can't be ignored. We cannot neglect it because they exist whether we like it or not.
They do exist.
That is why we have Federal Character Commission, which stipulates some things to be done in public offices nationwide. And the Catholic bishops are saying, look, if you are a true Nigerian, if you represent Nigeria, as a president of the country, then your appointment needs to go round. Are they mistaken?
The appointment did go round. But even after going round, each state contributed to the center.
Right.
And each of the regions contributed additional.
Right.
So, if it is about going round, it went round.
Right.
Then people drilled down and said, this is a more juicy ministry, and it is going to that part.
Shouldn't that matter, or should it matter?
On top of 7 trillion naira? It doesn't. It is irrelevant, if you ask me. What we need to focus on is how to make our states to perform.
Let me read some comments from
That is
WhatsApp
very
as we leave. On the papers today, we have a comment from Mohammed, who's reaching us from Nampula in Mozambique. He says the xenophobic attacks were encouraged by the South African government. They didn't care what happened to foreigners in their country. We have a comment also, no name. If there's no name to your message, I can't read it. Olusegun Ajayi from Ikorodu says, regardless of the envoy sent by the South African government, the federal government should sue South Africa to ICC and AU for serial genocide. There are comments also on Facebook. I'll try to read through quite a number of them. On Twitter, we have one from Dini Mohammed who says, for now, if truly the government loves us, they shouldn't allow South Africa come into Nigeria. Like Gbolahan said, the issue has to be resolved, and it has to be resolved through dialogue.
Right.
There are loads of comments on Facebook. God gracious, where do I start from? Dr. Amana Buchina says, so which of your comments do I read? Yes, so many. Okay, he says Nigerian government should take the South African government to ICJ, says Akiyemi. Says, yes, I would wish to agree with him because the legal process is a fairly acceptable way to resolve disputes. Wale Adiagbo says, my first time watching Nigeria Info. Wow, you should watch us more often. Francis Oduke says, I love Quadry's comment on previous loser statesmen who lost presidential elections. He emphasized the need on civility and maturity. We recall how some of them made inciting statements such as, I will make the country ungovernable. Those are quite inciting statements. Well, thank you all for joining the front pages. When we go for this very short break and we return, we'll be looking at VAT. The government clarified. They said it's not 7.2. Don't be mistaken.
Calm down. We're not even
don't make
done
the mistake.
yet.
It's 7.5% increment. And there's a headline here, some place on the papers today. Right. Other Guardian says federal government to make 2 trillion naira in 2020 from increased VAT. They have projected already, and we'll be looking at this just
So it's coming.
just after the break. Gbolahan will be joining us also on this conversation. We'll be back shortly. I'm Wemimo Adewuni.
I'm Sheriff Quadry.
From your number one talk news and sports station. This is the Morning Crossfire with Wemimo and Sheriff.